All right. Welcome, everyone, to DevProdEng Showdown. It's our last showdown of the year. You know, we came a long way entertaining everybody during the pandemic, and very excited to have today's show. And it's all about software engineering at scale topics, and we're going to do it in a game show format. Here's how it's going to work. We have these four amazing panelists here today, and we're going to throw around 7 to 8 topics. And each panelist gets around 30 seconds per topic to make an interesting point and share their experiences around that topic. Then once everyone's done, you as the audience gets to vote via your Zoom control panel. And vote on who you get to learn something new from, because that's what we're trying to achieve today, is entertain you and 30 minutes, and hopefully you learn 7 or 8 new topics around productivity engineering at scale, or at least hear some interesting war stories from our panelists. So who's on the panel today? Very excited about this crew. First off, Aubrey from Netflix. She works on the productivity engineering team there. And I've met her a bunch of times just working with Gradle. Her team owns all the Gradle plugins and all the OSS plugins from Netflix, right? All the Nebula stuff that many of you may or may not be using. Next up, Eli from Confluent, and you know it as Apache Kafka. He's on the productivity engineering team there and leading that effort to make the Kafka developers more productive. And Jason from Okta, he recently started the productivity engineering team there, and I've had the pleasure to work with him and his great team to do some interesting stuff and help their folks. And so excited to have him today. And last but not least, Jesse Wilson from Cash App, a.k.a. Square, right? He kind of works on productivity engineering per se. I don't know. Is he a VP? Is he an architect? I mean, nobody knows what his title is, but he's jack of all trades, and he definitely cares about the productivity of Cash App developers and does a lot there. So we're very excited to have him here today. All right, so let's dive into the first topic. And the first one, it's a little softball type question to get you all warmed up, right? So in terms of productivity and scale, what's your favorite programming language? Give us some examples. Aubrey, you're up first.
Hey, so Kotlin is my choice for application writing for its ease of use, understandability, performance over Groovy, and static types, which I really love. However, once we take a look at compatibility at scale, my answer changes. Java is my choice for plugin and library compatibility, where the reason here is, since our team is involved in around 3,000 projects, which have an expected skew of versions in various areas, we've run into compatibility issues with Kotlin and Groovy before, where we write these libraries and plugins that need to be used in all these projects.
Nice one. Little Kotlin, little Java there. All right, you're up next. What do you think, Eli?
Yeah, I think for focusing on developer productivity, my choice is Python. I think Ruby is a great alternative, but in the past, the previous companies, when I've had a hard time finding people with enough prior experience with Ruby, a lot more Python candidates. And even though competition can be a little fierce and you get concerned that you have to compete with Google, it's actually turned out pretty well. You can actually lure some people away from Google. Found that works well too.
All right, we got one for Python. I was worried everybody's going to say Java and Kotlin here today. Jason, you're up next.
Well, yeah, me too, because Java, it's hard to beat Java. Like the number of articles I've read about the death of Java in my career is quite long, and it doesn't go away. The number of libraries that are available, being able to hire people, static typing that like really matters at scale. I think when you start getting large code bases, it's hard to beat Java.
All right. And Jesse, to wrap it up.
When I started at Square, we had 2 different languages that we were using as our primary languages. We used Java for all of the scale stuff, and then we used Ruby for all of the developer productivity things. And this was just completely terrible because when you're starting a new service, you have to decide, is this a productivity problem or a scale problem? With Kotlin, everybody loves it. It's just as productive. It scales well, runs really, really fast in production.
Thanks for the answers. Audience, it's your turn to vote. Whose answer did you like the most? All right. Aubrey with a nice second place for Jesse. Okay, let's get to the next one here. Flaky tests, one of the biggest pain points and hottest topics around productivity engineering, right? Flaky tests should fail builds, yes or no, but also give us a little bit more of, kind of what you think with that. Jesse, you're up first on this one, flaky tests.
So I'm like absolute zero tolerance policy for flaky tests. I think flaky tests are completely devastating to engineering productivity. The whole point of your tests is to find out, is this code correct or not? And in our organization, we have robots submitting pull requests and making changes to the repo, and they can't debug, some flaky test and figure that out. So we ignore the flaky tests as aggressively as possible.
All right. Jason, what do you think?
So the problem with flaky tests is not that they sometimes fail, but it's that they usually pass. And so when they fail, you can't tie the failure to the particular code change, which is why it's always tempting to say, well, it's not my fault, so let's skip it. But if you start letting them through, they just pile up and pile up and pile up because they're never the person's fault. And then you wind up under a huge weight eventually. So if you're not passing them now, don't start under any circumstances.
Eli, flaky tests. How do you guys deal with this?
Yeah, unequivocally needs to fail a build. And, I've worked at places where, it's huge issues. And the problem is that, it also, if you start rerunning them, that's usually the first thing people do is it starts to, make your test times really long and also really variable. And then you start putting them into isolation or some quarantine. That's another strategy, and then no one fixes them, fixes them or addresses it. So you have real, you have real quality issues.
Do you want to keep? You wanted to add another second there?
Sure. I mean, and I think if you address it, then it helps you move towards more advanced features where you start doing, targeted testing or different stages of testing. And so not addressing it then, leads to not moving forward, and you never figure out why, your tests are flaky, and uncovering some really root cause issues there.
Got it. All right. And Aubrey, to wrap it up.
So yes, flaky tests should fail the build. Why else, I think, would we bother to pay attention to them? It's important to call out which tests are flaky and either retry them, like with the Gradle retry plugin, or redo them in a way that reduces their flakiness. So as part of the developer productivity teams at Netflix, we increasingly rely on automated updates, just like Jesse was talking about, where the contract we use to determine if a change is okay involves running a project's build and their tests. If they have flaky tests that are critical, they may not see as many successful pull requests, and then the team members have to figure out what has gone wrong.
All great answers. Love anything on flaky tests. Audience, what do you think? Whose answer did you like the most? Let's kick off this poll. All right, Aubrey again. Oh my gosh, she's on fire today. Love it. Amazing. Okay, another favorite question and topic around here and where I work, right? What's the number one productivity engineering metric for success? Jason, you're up first this time.
I think it depends on your team. So for us, it's build time because the build time is so long. But for anybody, you want to look at the process of what developers are doing and figure out not what takes the longest, but where are they actually waiting? Because that's when they're wasting their time. So waiting for a build, waiting for a CI run to finish, waiting for IntelliJ to index their project because the project is giant, all those things, whichever is, anyway, you got it.
We got it. And I can relate to everything that you just said. Eli, you're up next.
Okay, I'd go with the lead time for change metric from the DORA framework. From the time a product manager decides, hey, we want to implement this feature to the time, it gets on the roadmap and is in your customer's hands. If you want to be a little more, you can go from time to commit to publish, but I think that leaves out how long it takes, for your engineer to actually iterate and work on that and test it and make sure that, everything they do before they commit.
Love that one. All right. Aubrey, you're up next.
So it's super hard to find just one metric, since things like number of commits, lines of code, related, they're all super subjective, and we don't find them to be as good of an indicator. However, I'm going to +1 to Jason about tracking what people are waiting on. So this local developer wait time is something that contributes directly to the developer experience and can be measured in several ways. So we take a look at things like configuration time, time to run compilation tasks, time to run a full build, all these kinds of things where we can minimize the forced context shift and help to minimize developer wait time.
Love it. Jesse, bring us home.
So at Square, we do quarterly developer happiness surveys. And I feel like developer happiness is the absolute metric for productivity. Developers who aren't productive aren't happy. And, you can hack this in a lot of interesting ways. You can say, let's get our developers new M1 Max. You can say, let's actually celebrate our wins. And that pushes us through, we had a slog recently, a big migration. And we said, when we get this done, we're going to ship everybody one of these like beautiful cakes. And so we shipped out beautiful cakes. Everybody got a cake at the door. Happy team.
Nice. Going high level on it. Cakes. Yeah, I wasn't expecting cakes, but I love it. Let's get the poll going. Ooh, it's a top. Oh, it's close. Jason, you're on the board. Wow, that was a close one. Everybody gave great answers. Good one, Jason. All right. This is another fun one here. Test-driven development. Does it work in the wild? Eli, you're up first.
I'll say not exactly. My example is a story about, in an interview, someone trying to use test-driven development, which was great, but you don't spend as much time talking to the interview about the design, walking through, and you don't let the interviewer give you a chance to help you kind of guide you to the most optimal answer, give you hints or anything like that. So it kind of becomes like a, pass or fail, and you're really focused on the coding. And I'm more about that discussion and how it's going to be like to work through a problem with you if we hire you.
Aubrey, you're up next. TDD, does it work in the wild?
So I think totally, yes. While teams can align on what areas of code are reasonable to test, getters and setters, I'm looking at you, and what kinds of tests to use, the idea of red, green, refactor is an essential tool. So while there's many ways to write difficult to test code, it's really easier to start with testability in mind. If you do need to make a change in a code base that's difficult to test or has no tests at all, my favorite way to address this is with the strangler pattern that allows you to introduce changes into the code base in a new way, a testable way, by using a seam in the code base.
Jesse, you're up next. TDD.
Often I'll find myself trying to write a solution to some problem, and it's open-ended, and I just have nowhere, I don't know where to start. And this is where I really lean on TDD myself. So I will I'll open a brand new test class, and I'll write a test method called Happy Path. And if you look in my repos, I've got hundreds of tests called Happy Path, where it's just like, the goal of this test is to put the inputs in this end, confirm the outputs come out the other end, and make sure all of the moving parts are connected together. And once I've got that test, I can clone it and write more and more interesting tests.
Love it. Like my computer science professor used to say, the tests are your design. All right. Jason, what do you think?
On a personal level, when I'm writing code, I use TDD. It does everything that it's advertised to do. It improves my design. It makes me feel happy. It improves my productivity, all that stuff. I've never seen a largish organization that actually has the discipline to have a development practice where everybody's doing test-driven design. Developers push back. They think, why am I wasting all this time on these stupid tests? And people pick bad metrics to look at test coverage. So for large teams, no.
Okay, audience, let's kick this poll off.
Doing this acapella.
Oh, another close one. Aubrey again. Amazing.
Oh, she's running away.
Aubrey in the lead. All right. Okay, what do we got next? All right. This is another softball one, but it's interesting. Are developers more productive since COVID-19 with work from home? And we're going to do Aubrey first.
Yeah, so this super duper varies from person to person. I've got a teammate who was taking meetings from their roasty toasty garage in summer just so they could have a private space. But I've also got a teammate who was happier to stay several hours away at a location that better suited their active lifestyle. So I really think that having the option to see what fits is key. And then as for the team as a whole, it's as important as ever to ensure that the team is talking, collaborating, and sharing context. Now, if we're in various places, especially, it can be helpful to formalize this process and have check-ins to see if everyone feels comfortable and heard.
And so that's kind of a yes, but you need the right processes in place. All right, Jesse, what do you think? Well, COVID-19, has it made you more productive?
When we started into the pandemic, the senior people were all like, wow, this is amazing. I get so much done. There's no junior people bothering me. I can just focus on the code and have a whole bunch of uninterrupted time. And what ends up happening is our relationships, get tired, and our junior people, we're not investing in them. We're not attending to them, giving them the mentorship that they need. And so I think that coming back into the office or getting mentorship back is key for now.
Jason, you're up next.
Yeah, on balance, no. So I think that it depends on the developer. But for most teams, there's an optimal balance between like focus time and collaboration time. And for some people, the focus is much better. But for other people, the focus is like working from home is terrible. And then for everybody, the sort of the water cooler meetings, the like whiteboard sessions and all that stuff is worse. Even if you can kind of make it work, it's not as good as in person. So I would say on balance, no.
Eli, to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm going to say no as well. Confluent was always a very remote-friendly place prior to COVID, so we had a lot of good things in place to help us with the transition. It went pretty smoothly, but COVID in general just created a lot of stress for people, and especially for people with families and children. And so I try to be really aware of that for what people are facing, really empathetic with that additional burden that people are is placed on them, and to try to give them the support they need.
All right, audience, let's kick off this poll. All right, we got Eli on the board. Okay, next one. This is, I have to say, my favorite topic here, right? Especially with the large teams we have here today. Should different teams standardize on the same dev tools? I've seen this go different ways. There's different pains and pros and cons. And let's see, Jesse, you're up first.
So I really like the ideal of having different dev tools. But once upon a time, I was, walking with one of our, at the time, junior programmers, and this was like 2017. And he said, I've decided I'm only going to write Kotlin from now on. And I was like, you're not allowed to decide that. But he did. And we became, a leading Kotlin company. And so sometimes, standardize, but also let people go rogue when it's appropriate. Because when you go rogue, that's when you sort of like really bring the future forward.
Love it. Jason, you're up next.
Absolutely, yes. Although I like Jesse's answer about allowing some rogueness, but like my team has limited resources to support people who don't want to spend their time figuring out why their tool isn't working. And we have one guy who runs on Linux. He's the only guy that runs it. Well, there's two that run on Linux, and then he's got a problem and he comes to my team and is like, hey, this doesn't work, or I'm getting this out of memory error. And like, now we have to figure out his environment.
From the DevProd support side, totally makes sense. Eli, what do you think?
I'm going to say no as well. I tried this before and it was kind of a disaster. I think the important thing is set up a central team with like a contract or API that all of these tools need to adhere to be plugged into your process, and you're okay. And then give people the freedom to choose the right tool for the right situation. It definitely, if you do this, it'll stifle innovation. Like what Jesse mentioned as well, and then forcing people, and then you're kind of just defending yourself against these decisions and why you can't use this or why you have to use that.
Yep. And Aubrey, to wrap it up.
So definitely you want to take a look at what's going to be the best tool for the job. And yet, here's a little story. So at Netflix, an individual contributor can ask their peers or their nearest localized central team for tips or assistance if something's not looking right. But if an expanded circle of assistance is needed, then it's extremely helpful that teams are using a standardized set of tools so that folks from many different teams can understand the ask really quickly without needing as much specialized context to get everything sorted. So same tools, it's really helpful.
All right, awesome. And, there's stuff like iOS. How do you deal with that, right? It's a very challenging topic. Great answers. Audience, what do you think? All right, we got Eli on board again. It was a tight one between Jesse and Eli. Nice. Okay, we're in the lightning round, so 15 seconds per each person on the topic. What's the most common mistake that developers make that wastes everyone's time? Okay, I know a few of these myself. Jason, what do you think? You're up.
It's hard in 15 seconds, but not pushing back on a requirement that doesn't make sense when really they want substring search. It doesn't perform, but really what they want is to be able to search by email domain. Don't accept that they need substring search.
Okay. Next is Eli.
I'm going to say for developer productivity, it's about, pushing out a change that you can't roll back or circumvent. Examples come to mind of, making changes to the CI system or source control system, and then all of a sudden nobody at the company can do any work.
I think Jason was right. We should have given this one more than 15 seconds. Great stuff coming in. Aubrey, what do you think?
Not setting expectations for meetings. It's really important to know before going into a meeting, is this a brainstorming session? Are there pre-reads? Are there expected outcomes? Or is this just a general chat? Setting expectations as early as possible allows all the participants to know some of what can make this a successful gathering.
I like it. Different twist. Jesse.
When you're first learning to program, you might, go to college and they might, show you some things that you could smoke and maybe some things, they'll show you Vim. And you'll be like, Vim key bindings, this is amazing. I'm so happy. Never learn Vim. Quitting cigarettes is hard, but quitting Vim is even harder. :QW or something.
That was too good. Love it. All right, audience, let's kick off this poll. All right. I guess they love that smoking and Vim reference, right? Do things that your mom said never do, right? Your mom said don't smoke cigarettes, and now add Vim to that. Okay. Last topic. Best tool in the wild today for Java debugging. Eli, you're up first.
Okay, so full disclosure, I don't do much Java development these days, but I'd go with Sentry. Where it reports, the errors and exceptions and exactly what the inputs were to your program when somebody was running it. And I've, had people put in ridiculous inputs and not be able to communicate clearly what they were actually doing. And this just alleviates that problem.
All right. Aubrey, you're up next.
So most of the debugging that I work on is folks' builds and dependency updates. So for this, the Gradle build scan comparisons are something that I use every day in helping folks understand what's changed their project since the last successful build, and what are the likely reasons for failure as related to their particular error message.
You had me at build scans. Jesse, you're up next.
So there's a tool on Android called Chucker, and it lets you see all of your network requests. And so I just absolutely love being able to see exactly what my application is doing. And sometimes it will show you, the app's not even open and it's making network requests, and Chucker will show you that. Wonderful for debugging.
Love it. Jason, to wrap it up.
System.out.println. No. The New Relic, and there's other ones like App Dynamics, but New Relic is the one I used, to be able to drill in with telemetry on what's happening in production. It saved me so many times.
Okay, nice one. Love those answers. Wasn't sure about that topic, but love it. Okay, audience, let's kick the vote. All right, we got Jason. Nice. And the winner is Aubrey. It's not all about the points. It's about the audience learning something new and being entertained. Aubrey, your 15 seconds of fame.
Very cool. Well, hello from Netflix. We are hiring, so come check out our postings at jobs.netflix.com. And especially for this audience, take a look at the post in the productivity engineering team.
Awesome. Thanks to the audience and thanks to the panelists. You guys were amazing today. Aubrey, Eli, Jason, Jesse, thanks for joining. And audience, thank you. We went a little over time. You're going to be late to your 10:30, but hopefully you can join us for the next one. We have a DevProdEng Showdown with the LinkedIn team in a few weeks after the holidays. And signing out from Great Old Land, and see you all soon.